A locksmith will tell you something that sounds like a riddle. The lock is almost never the problem. Think about that. The lock is the one part of your door somebody actually engineered. It has pins, springs, tolerances, a company behind it. It is the strongest, most thought-about object in the whole opening, which is exactly why nobody bothers with it. You do not attack the strongest part of anything. You attack the part next to it. And a door is a system, a dozen parts working together, and the lock is the one part reliably doing its job. Everything around it, the frame, the strike, the edge, the hinges, the glass beside it, is where a door actually opens. I want you to hold on to that idea, because it is the thing that makes this whole video useful. When you look at your own front door, you have been looking at the wrong part your entire life. You have been looking at the lock, because the lock is the part with the keyhole, the part your attention goes to. Nobody stands in their doorway and studies the frame, and the frame is the answer, every single time. And this is Florida, which adds something almost nowhere else has to think about. Heat and humidity. Wood swells and shrinks with the seasons here, in a way it does not up north. Metal corrodes in the salt air. Screws back out. Frames soften. Adhesives let go. Your door was fitted tight on the day it went in, and this climate has been working on it, quietly, every single day since. And that is the thing that makes Florida different from a northern state on this subject. Up north, a door that was fitted well stays fitted well for a long time. Here, a door that was perfect on installation day is a slightly different door every single season, because the material it is made of is alive to the weather. Wood breathes. It takes on water in the wet months and gives it back in the dry ones, and every one of those cycles moves it a fraction, and the fractions add up. The result is that door security in this state is not a thing you do once. It is a thing that quietly comes undone on its own, on a schedule, whether anyone touches it or not. 10 Florida front doors, from 10 to 1, that a locksmith says open in under a minute. Not because the locks are bad, because everything the lock is bolted to has been losing a slow fight with the weather. Number 1 is the door most Floridians are proudest of. It is very likely the reason you chose this house over another one, and it is the single easiest entry in the entire building, and those two facts are the same fact. Let us start. Start with the one you already know about and read wrong. You know the door. It sticks in summer. You have to shoulder it. Everybody in the house does the little hip check to get it closed. You think that means it is tight, secure, sealed. It means the opposite. A door that has swollen against its frame is a door that is no longer sitting on its latch properly. The bolt is not going fully home because the door cannot close far enough to let it. It is being held shut by friction, by wood jammed against wood, and friction is not a lock. And there is a nasty second half to this. A swollen door feels more secure to the person inside, which means it is the last door anybody thinks to fix. The very feeling that makes you trust it is the thing telling you it has stopped working. The tell. If you have to force your door closed, it is not locking, it is wedging. Get the door eased so it closes freely, then the bolt can actually do its job. Same problem, one step further in. Over the years, a Florida house moves, settles, the frame shifts a fraction, and the hole the bolt is supposed to slide into, the strike, stops lining up. You know this has happened because you have to lift the door by the handle, or push it, to get the key to turn. That lift is you manually forcing the bolt to find a hole it can no longer reach on its own. And when a bolt only half enters its hole, it might be extending half an inch into the frame instead of a full inch. From the outside, the door looks locked. It is holding by half. The tell. Lock your door and then push it, hard, from outside. If it moves, rattles, or gives, the bolt is not seated. That gap is the whole ballgame, because a bolt that only half enters its hole can be forced the rest of the way with almost nothing, and the door will still look perfectly locked from the street the entire time. Everybody obsesses over the lock side. A door has two sides. The hinge side is held on by screws, and on a lot of Florida doors, those hinges face outward, or the pins are exposed, and after years in this climate, the screws are barely biting anymore. A door does not have to be opened at the lock. It can come off at the hinges, and a door with loose hinge screws and a corroded pin is a door that pivots on nothing. You can have the finest deadbolt in the state on the lock side, and it means nothing if the other edge lets go. The tell. Open your door and look at the hinges. Long screws, at least 1 3-inch per hinge into the framing. Pins intact. If the hinges face outside, a set of caps, which cost almost nothing, stops the pin coming out. Stand inside, in the day, And look at the edge of your closed door. If you can see a line of daylight down the side, that gap is telling you exactly how much room the bolt has to work with and how much room something flat has to get in beside it. Florida doors develop these gaps because the weather stripping perishes in the sun and the wood moves. A door that sealed tight 10 years ago now has a quarter inch of daylight down one edge. And that daylight is doing two separate bad things at once. It is telling anyone standing at your door exactly where your bolt sits and how much slack it has. And it is a physical gap, which means something thin and flat has room to work in beside the bolt. A tight door gives nothing to grip and nothing to see. A gappy door hands over both. The tell. No daylight down the lock edge. Fresh weather strip closes the gap and, more importantly, closes the sight line into your latch. This is the one people are most sure they have right, and most often do not. A deadbolt is only as good as the distance it throws. A full throw is about an inch of solid metal into the frame. A lot of doors, because of everything already on this list, the swelling, the settling, the misaligned strike, are only getting a half throw, sometimes less. Half an inch of bolt in a soft, damp Florida frame is not a deadbolt, it is a suggestion. And the reason this one fools people is that it locks. The key turns, the mechanism clicks, everything sounds right. The failure is invisible, buried inside the frame where you will never see it, and it announces nothing. The tell. Open the door. Turn the deadbolt so the bolt sticks out. Measure it with your eye against your thumb. If that is not a full inch of steel, and if it does not slide freely without you lifting the door, you have a deadbolt working at half strength, and the fix is usually not a new lock at all. It is realigning the strike so the bolt has somewhere to go. A 10-minute job that doubles the strength of a lock you already own. Halfway, and notice the pattern, because it is the whole video. Not one of these is the lock. Every single one is the frame, the fit, the gap, the throw, the hinge. The parts nobody sells and nobody thinks about, quietly moved out of position by 10 years of Florida weather. You could put a $1,000 lock on any door on this list, and it would change nothing, because nobody was ever going to touch the lock. The last 5 are where the door itself is the weak point. Look beside your front door. A lot of Florida entries have a side light, a tall, narrow panel of glass, or glass panels in the door itself. A locksmith looks at that and does not see a window. They see the distance from that glass to your thumb turn, because most deadbolts have a thumb turn on the inside, and if a pane of glass is within arm's reach of it, the lock is decorative. The glass is the lock now. The tell. Measure from any glass to your thumb turn. If a reaching arm gets there, then the entire security of that door is a pane of glass, and the fix is either a double-cylinder lock, which needs a key on both sides, or security film that holds the glass together when it breaks. Just know which one you are dealing with, because right now, you may be trusting a lock that a reaching hand simply goes around. The button in the middle of the handle, the one you push and the door is locked. That is not a security lock, it never was. It is a convenience latch, a spring bolt with an angled face, and an angled face is designed to slide. That is why the door clicks shut behind you on its own. It slides over the strike. Anything that slides shut can be slid open, and a spring latch is the single most defeated piece of door hardware there is, precisely because it is built to move easily. The same angled face that lets your door click close behind you with your hands full is the face that lets something flat slip past it. It is not a flaw. It is the design working exactly as intended, for a purpose that was never security. And this is the single most common mistake in the entire state, because it is a habit, not a decision. You are stepping out for 5 minutes. The door clicks behind you. It feels closed. It feels done. And the deadbolt never gets turned. 5 minutes is the whole window. Nobody needs an hour. The tell. If the handle button is all you use when you pop out, you are not locked. The deadbolt is the lock. Use it every time, even for 5 minutes. Florida loves a smart lock. Code pad, phone, no keys in the heat. And a smart lock is genuinely fine. But people install one and feel finished, and here is what they miss. A smart lock changes how the bolt is operated. It does nothing about where the bolt goes. It still throws into the same frame, the same strike, the same soft, damp wood as every entry on this list. You have put a very clever brain on top of the same weak body. The electronics are not the weak point, and never were, and all the effort people spend worrying about whether a smart lock can be hacked is effort spent on the one part of the door nobody was going to bother with anyway. The tell. A smart lock does not replace the framework. 3-inch screws in the strike, a full throw, a solid frame, all of it still applies underneath the technology. The door from the garage into the house. It counts as a front door, and it is treated as an afterthought. In Florida, this is often the least weather-sealed, most neglected door in the building, and it sits behind a garage door that is itself frequently the easiest way in. Get the garage open, and this door, hollow, spring latch, no deadbolt, is all that is left. And the reason this door gets neglected is purely psychological. It feels like an interior door because it opens into your garage, and your garage feels like part of the house. It is not. It is a separate structure with its own large, often easily opened door, and everything past it is exterior. The tell. This door needs the same deadbolt and the same frame as your actual front door. It is an exterior door. The garage is not inside. And here it is, the pride of the Florida house. The double doors out to the lanai, the pool, the light. The reason the room is the room. A locksmith looks at French doors and sees the weakest common entry in the state, and here is why. 2 doors, no frame between them. That is the entire design. Where a normal door bolts into solid framing, French doors bolt into each other. One door is the active one. The other, the inactive one, is held top and bottom by 2 long bolts, called flush bolts, that drop into the header and the threshold. And in Florida, those flush bolts are exactly what the weather attacks. The threshold hole fills with grit and sand and swollen wood. The bolt no longer drops fully. The header softens. So the inactive door, the one everything else locks against, is itself held by 2 half-seated bolts in damp wood. Defeat the inactive door, and both doors open, because the active door was only ever locking to the inactive one. People spend all their attention on the door they use, the handle they touch every day, and the entire pair was always going to give way at the door they never think about. That is why it is number 1. Not because the lock is bad, because the entire pair depends on 2 hidden bolts that this climate is designed to jam, and nobody ever checks them, because they are behind the door that never opens. The tell. Open the inactive door, the one that stays shut, and work both flush bolts by hand. Do they drop fully, freely, all the way down? Or do they stop short, or grind, or need a wiggle? Clean the threshold hole out, because it is full of Florida, sand and grit and swollen wood, and add a proper lock or a floor bolt that drops into the concrete slab itself, so the pair does not depend on 2 corroded pins that nobody has laid